Well, I love the Mad Genius setup back there. This is where all the magic happens, right?
This is where I make the music. Yeah, for sure. It's a
Oh,
fun
that's
room to
good.
be in every day.
Yeah, that's so cool. It looks like the perfect place to create. And and of course we're happy to talk to you about this one about Hitman because this is obviously just a really really big one for Netflix and a big one for you. But you've been working with Richard so long, it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, yeah, here we go. It's just that gradual rise, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's had these films every once in a while, like School of Rock, but School of Rock is needle drop music, so I didn't have a score. But it's fun to watch him like, oh, I can do a number one movie, and then I can do something super arty, and then I can go back and do a number one movie. That there aren't a lot of directors I think of that have that sort of range from deep art to very artful but super entertaining mainstream films.
Hmm. And when did you guys first meet? Because you go way way back.
We just were in a lot of the same circles in the early 2000s. He would come, I did and do a lot of scoring for theater and contemporary dance and things like that. And he's a person who lives here and goes out to see stuff. And so we were in the same room a lot. And then we ended up doing this 9/11 short with Speed Levitch, who we ended up later, Rick and Speed, etc. We did a series for Hulu called Up to Speed. That was sort of my audition piece, and then Scanner Darkly, and on from there.
Mm. And when did you first realize that you had the gifts? Because you definitely have the gifts.
uh, I, all I knew was growing up that my favorite teachers were all music teachers, and that correlated the most strongly with I had the best time when I was making music, so I just kept pursuing that. And I started playing in Austin in the early '90s, and people immediately started asking me to score their things. It wasn't necessarily film; it was like experimental puppet show or contemporary dance or student film short or whatever it was. And all those things gradually grew into to things like Hitman.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the music scene in Austin has changed very much over the years, but it's still the perfect place for you to be, right?
Yeah, I like to be loud for one thing, and
Mhm.
so and I like to be in the same. I like to live in the same place with my instruments, and so a place like New York, where you have to, get in the subway and go to your rehearsal space, unless you have super deep pockets. And Hitman's popular, but it's not buying me a major studio in New York. This is also a live-in space, and so here I've got the studio with really thick walls. I can make music as loudly as I want any time of day or night. And then this huge music scene here, and I'm very omnivorous in my taste and interests, and so I can collaborate with everybody from all the different micro scenes here and dip my toes in, and it's been a good city for me, and I'm very glad that I chose Austin
Yeah,
and
that's
and that
amazing.
it welcomed me. I'm appreciative.
Yes, of course. And of course, people have been looking at your career going, see, that's what I want to do, because it really is cool to be able to do such a diverse thing. And so, what kind of advice do you give to people that want to follow in your footsteps?
It depends on what they want to do, of course, but there are two things, sort of two parallel tracks. One is to work on your art and your craft, and to be ready for opportunity. Um, and at, in a parallel way, it's saying you can't. I don't think you can do one without the other. You try to create situations where those opportunities happen, and so you're ready for the moment when the moment happens, but you can't just like sit at home and make cool music and then wait for someone to come along and say, hey, score my film. You can't play, like, people play one show at South by, and then they go home and wait for the record deal to happen, or you have to go out each night and you have to immerse and you have to go to the parties and you have to network. And those are the things that create the opportunities to meet your art and craft that you've been working on the whole time. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but the more you are ready for the moment and the more you put into creating the possibility of those moments happen, those things, it's opportunities will come along. And now we have, when I started, we didn't have all the social media ways of also connecting. So it's another path towards creating opportunities. But I still think most things, especially in the film and TV world, maybe less so in the TikTok, YouTube world, but most things happen when people have been in the same room together and find that they get along. Who wants to make art with someone you don't get along with? And so, like, that sort of test, like, oh, are you cool to hang out with, matters. And not that you have to be the most extroverted person, you just find a way that matches your personality, but you do have to socially engage because it's people that you're going to be making art with.
Absolutely. And you'll like this as a good Texan. My co-host is Drew Pearson, one of our great Dallas Cowboys. Caught the Hail Mary, went in the Hall of Fame.
Amazing. Awesome.
Yes. And so we like to ask people their Hail Mary moment, which is that moment in your life or career where you just had to go for it and it worked out for you. What do you suppose that was for you?
That's definitely Scanner Darkly. So, um, I was making all my music in a relatively large bedroom, but nonetheless, my studio was also my bedroom. And I was cleaning houses for a living. I was doing a lot of work, but the work was paying very, very little. Um, and then came along this movie that had Robert Downey Jr. and Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder and Woody Harrelson, Richard Linklater, of course, making it. And then it was Philip K. Dick with a long history of successful film adaptations and now TV adaptations since then. So all these things lined up to like, this is the big opportunity. This is the thing. This is the moment that you hope to create happen, and that it's going to match, and that you're ready for it. And so, and I also said I said I want to record it at my place, and I barely know how to use a laptop at the time. But we recorded everything. I knew it was going to be a long post process because of the rotoscoping animation. And so I really wanted to give us time to dig in and change our mind and change things. And we really did use that whole post process. And I got very close to being dropped from the film, and Rick stuck by me, and I just kept making stuff. And it opened up all sorts of doors that were never opened before.
That's amazing. Well, part of that is that sort of success mindset. We talk about that on the show, whether you're feeling it or not. As creative types are notoriously hard on ourselves. So, is there something that you tell yourself that kind of keeps you on that right path, even when things are tough?
There are a lot of things I think I say to myself. One that it's feel lucky every day, and so just recognizing that it's freelance. So some years are amazing, and other years I'm still paying people who help me make my music, but I don't have a lot coming in those waves. And every artist asks themselves, um, uh, but that I get to spend every day in this room here making music, that I get to travel around the world, that I get to work with these amazing collaborators. So I just remind myself of that, and then also give myself room to experiment. I always make sure, like Hitman, uh, something like that, as amazing as it is, I don't control the art. Like whether or not my music goes in the end is not my decision. And so that loss of ownership can feel disempowering or discouraging at times. So I always make sure to have other projects that I fully own, that I fully control, and aren't going to be number one on Netflix, and aren't going to have that kind of attention, but nonetheless give me that feeling of like I get to spend parts of my day every day, making whatever my dream is at the moment. And so just making
Mhm.
sure that I have that time for myself carved out.
Yeah, I love that. And then, of course, Hitman is special, but what was it that was so special to you to where you're just kind of thinking, "Oh, I got to do it," or is it when Richard calls, like, "Okay, done"?
For sure, when Rick calls, that's always a yes. So so I didn't really have to think about that. But I think Sandra, the editor, me, like, you know, somewhere in there, you say, yeah, I think this one has a very high ceiling in terms of popularity, and you start to recognize it, especially when you start doing screenings. But
Hmm.
Glenn's performance, I think, exceeded anything we could have imagined reading the score, and
Hmm.
it's funnier than we could have imagined reading the score. And then he and Adria's chemistry is so visceral, like you can really sense it coming through the screen. So it's by far, to my memory, Rick's sexiest movie, and
Yeah.
sex is really popular. And it's Rick's funniest movie in a while, and funny things are also super popular. And you put the
Mhm.
two together, and there you go. And then combine that with like action crime element and genre put in there. It's a real, it's a mashup of all these super popular things, and so just going along for that ride and making sure that what you do helps that film be its best. And I'm not trying to make Glenn funnier so much as creating a platform that gives him makes his performances work as effectively as they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, after this, I'm excited to hear what you got coming up next for us. What do you have coming?
So we did an Edgar Allan Poe ballet in the spring with
Yes.
the Austin Symphony and Austin Ballet, or Ballet Austin, and so that was for orchestra, and just been finishing up mixes on those. And then I've been doing a lot of work with Fire Records in London. So they, along with Lakeshore,
Mhm.
surprised me on the 10th anniversary of Scanner Darkly by releasing the vinyl uh,
Yes.
edition. And I've been working with them in little bits ever since. And we've been working on an album. We did an EP a couple months ago called Music for Profit. And I had Marta Del Grande, the singer from Milan. She
Hmm.
did a version in Italian, a version in English. And the whole EP is sort of a variation on this one little theme that I made for a dance company here called Forklift Dance Works. And then we're working with producers over in England that are we're turning that into a full album. We're getting pretty close, but I just sent a few more piano sketches, sort of as a contrast to some of the other tracks yesterday. So I think we're just about done with the album. Probably spring is my guess when that'll come out.
Oh, that's great. And then, of course, what a joy you get to just wake up and then come and create there and just start to get to work. Is that kind of how your morning starts? You just start messing around?
Yeah, I first thing I do is usually read for a while. I really
Uh,
like. I mean, I've got a lot of books in here,
yeah.
and then once I'm sort of in that clear headspace, and then I sit down and just make stuff. Try to not get buried in email or whatever, and then move on to the more efficient, product directly productive part of the day, addressing all those other things. But I make music in here literally every day and most nights too.
Oh, that's great. Well, what a great life, what a great time, and you got so much going on, and big #1 movie. So we're so happy for you, and definitely look forward to. We'll follow along with everything that's going on, and I look forward to talking to you again very, very soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Keep up the
Have
good
a
work.
good one.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. You too.